We are live. That's right. Today is what is it? We got February, March. It's March 7th, 2026. It is 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As every weekend, we do a Saturday and Sunday. Welcome to the show. Welcome. And today is gonna be a fun little day. We are going to be exploring what I like to call scene analysis. That's right. We've been doing this a little bit, and I figured we'd do a little special something something today. The big special something something, by the way, just for the record, is going to be scripts. I know you might be saying, but Thomas, uh, I'm a novelist. Well, the thing with screenplays is that all narratives are narratives. So what we're going to do today is we are going to break down Shawshank Redemption, and we're going to teach you basically how to move narrative forward by looking at what's happening. Now, obviously, it's a screenplay, so we're going to see a lot of dialogue with very little direction or quote unquote action. Now, the fun part about this is what we go over today will help you better analyze your dialogue, but also your character choices. But more importantly, you'll see that every line has one or more of these three things: plot forward, character development, or world building. It has one or more of those at any given time. So it's really nice to see how a skillful screenplay is doing exactly what you should be doing in your novel. Now, obviously, in your novel, you get a little bit more playroom. There's prose, right? There's passages that you're writing, immersion. So it is slightly different, but that doesn't mean you can't use it to learn. Let's say hi to everyone real quick before we get into it today. What is up, flowers? Always a pleasure. SB. Oh, look, we got Emma in the house. I've been looking forward to this live. Ciao, bello. Well, does that mean you're staying? Are you staying or are you going to go eat food and then you're going to just come back later? That's the question. Hey, Angel Faye, welcome. Welcome. Afghani, always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Ditto Elma. I love it. I love it. All right. Oh, we got Laura. Laura, I saw you yesterday on a live. I meant to be editing. I can't believe you're forcing me to watch this. No one's forced. Yeah, I mean, hey, look, we might have some singing. We might have some treats. Sean, what's up, my friend? Mallows Prime. All right. So, as always, we do have a poll. So, as we're by the end of the hour, we'll try to get to it if sooner. You know what I'm saying? If not sooner. So, what is or would be, if you haven't published a book yet, but what is or would be the hardest feedback to hear? We have characters, plot, etc. Basically, all the stuff that you put your heart and soul into, right? It was a little boring. The second one is I was bored. It was hard to finish. So the difference between that is I was bored just reading it. It was hard to finish. It's difficult to get through. The other stuff is the characters, plots, or like things aren't working, and it is just boring in general. Those are two different experiences. Uh, I had to stop reading it. That's painful. And of course, random nitpicking. The amateur critics. Honestly, that's probably my pick. When they're just doing ridiculous nitpicks. I don't know why are they wearing blue sneakers. All right, we got everybody. Ooh, whoop, we had a siren attack. Oh Jesus! And at 5:30 a.m. My friend, I don't even know how to respond to that without because I'm such a big should you be in your look? Why don't you and the fam come here and I'll keep you in the extra room. We'll protect you. We'll protect you. Just please be safe out there. I know it's crazy. It's crazy. I can't even. It's not even the same. Woo. The better Laura. How are you? We got Laura. We got the Laura. All right. Angel. Hey everybody. Hey, what's going on? Good. But I've left my editing to the last minute as usual. No one's judging you. Uh, we all. All right, let's get into it. Let's just jump right to it. Boom. All right, we're gonna be doing a scene that I'm sure you all know. This is the scene. The quick version of it is that it's the scene where Andy Dufresne is walking over to Red, and Red is playing. He's tossing the baseball, and they have, "Hey, why do they call you Red?" And because I'm Irish, right? All this stuff. So that's what this scene is. So we're gonna be looking at the scene, and we're gonna be, basically talking ab if you have questions oh, yeah, let me put my little if you have questions about your own writing, by the way, and how it might relate to what we're talking about today, feel free to ask those questions. It's not gonna be an aside that crosses me. We're here for that. I'm a developmental editor and a writing teacher, so it's all but more importantly, if you have questions about what I bring up during the breakdown, feel free to ask questions. I had to stop reading might depend on the reason why. Ooh, well, that, I had to stop reading. Well, you know Yeah, well, oh, yeah, I look, you're in a situation I can't even, like, it's I feel for you. My empathy, and I can't even comprehend it. Just biggest issue I have is the train shows up at night, drives past the house. Just been sticking my chips in the air fryer, and for anyone who doesn't know, chips in England are basically the fries. Hey! I have progressed to chapter 16. We'll start tomorrow. You have an under oh, I go. I will fix that. There we go. Sorry about that. It should be fixed now. It should be fixed now. Sorry about that. Yeah, yeah. All right. Good, good, good. I thank you for that. I had the echo blocker on because I was talking. I was doing an interview. I did interviewed somebody. All right. I had to stop reading cause there was an alien invasion. That's fair. Afghan, are you talking about the 27 plot point, Alan? All right. I would cry if my boys were boring. Oh yeah, that would be difficult. Yeah, like if people were just like, "Yeah, your characters are so boring, so boring." Fantastic. All right, let's get into it. All right. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna read a little bit, and then I'll read the scene. The scene is 1, 2, 3, 4, four pages, and then this is technically probably 2/8 of a page. So it's 8, 9, 10, 10/8 of a page, right? But because then it jumps to the other thing. I could see why some of the boys took to him for shouting, snobby. Um, Keep in mind, what's nice about this is if it's this many pages, that's how long the scene is, right? So this is one. What is it? 2, 3. It's 3 minutes, 3 minutes, and like maybe 10, 15 seconds. So that's oh, it's small, small. All right, let's see if I can fix that. Wait, let's get back up here. Where are we? Boop, boop, boop. All right, there we go. Da, 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 da. I shouldn't be in the way too much. I'm gonna be in the way for the top, but let's bring me down a little bit. Let's bring me down. All right, there we go. All right, so let's read a little bit, and just keep in mind, I'm just reading it. I'm not acting. All right. All right. Exercise. Oh, exterior. EXT is exterior. Exercise yard day. 1947. My father would be 2 years old. My mother would not be born right now. All right. Glasses. All right. Exercise period. Red plays catch with Haywood and Jigger, lazily tossing a baseball around. Red notices Andy off to the side, nods hello. Andy takes this as a cue to amble over. Haywood and Jigger pause watching. Now, just for fun, I always forget. Yeah, it's set long, long time ago. A long, long time ago. A couple things to think about here. What I started doing when I was getting more into long form narrative and like moving away from screenwriting, not that I moved away from it, but that I was thinking maybe Hollywood's not where I want to be anymore. This is after I had dealt with the cancer and everything, right? So one of the things I cared about was taking something as simple as this, which, by the way, is as straightforward as you can be. Exercise period. Okay, great. So they're exercising. Red plays catch with Haywood. Okay, so they're tossing, right? I would take beats like this from a script and say, how do I physically show that? Because the exercise period, I know that I have to convey that on the page. I do not have to convey that in one line. However, in a script, that's all you need. All you got to do is exercise period, done. And now the director and the actors, all right, we have to create a physicality. And that's something that really helped me when it came to scenes, writing long form narrative. I still processed scenes. What is the behavior? What is the activity? What is the movement of the scene outside of even getting to the plot yet? Just how do I dress this scene? All right. What is the behavior? So the behavior, we're going to start with Red playing and Hayward Jigger lazily tossing the baseball around. So that's easy, right? So in my mind, okay, because that's the first thing we're going to see on the page, if I was writing narrative, I would practice that. I would practice not necessarily giving deep exposition like we're in the exercise yard and there are people around and they're just tossing the ball. No, I would just create the sound and the ambiance of the mood, but I would focus specifically on Red tossing the ball to Hayward and his friend. That would be the first image I would definitely try to get. And then maybe I would have people walking around, right? But anyway, so Red notices Andy. Now, obviously, in a long form narrative, we wouldn't say notice. We try to avoid the filter words. Not that you can't say notice. Obviously, telling and keeping the pace going is fine. But what I would do here is I would just be like, what is Andy doing? Right? And that is a choice I would have to make because I have to become the actor now, right? I have to block the scene. So when I'm writing long form narrative, my brain still does this. So if I'm outlining or setting up a quick scene or doing a zero draft, it might look like that, right? You've seen me do this where it just says, Andy's doing that and Red's doing this and this happens and this happens. But then I have to say to myself, what does that look like? Instead of it just being like Red notices Andy. Well, what is Andy doing off to the side? And how do I frame that? How do I put that into a frame? Because again, I come from the screenwriting. The nods, hello. By the way, just as a funny aside, what is the there's an Instagram or there's a reel going around where it's like authors having that dreaded panic attack, and the panic attack is like, so and so smirked or whatever, or so and so nodded, right? It's just funny that even in a top level screenplay, nods hello, right? So that's what I'm saying. Anyway, Andy hands this as a cue to amble over. I love that he chose amble because that's behavior. All right. Is there a book or was it written directly as a script? That's a great question, Afghani. So originally it was a short story written by, hey, what's up, bro? It was a short story written by Stephen King, of all people, right? So it's actually based off of the Rita Hayworth. So let me get the exact one for based off of. So it's based off of Stephen King's novella Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption. So it's basically from the collection of different seasons. So it's a short collection from different seasons, blah, blah, blah. But Frank Darabont, actually, if I remember correctly, is one of the people that basically, he definitely directed it, but I think he also co-wrote it or wrote it, right? I think it's Darabont did definitely, let me see. Let me just double check. Yeah, Frank Darabont wrote and directed it. Just wanted to clarify that. All right, let's get into it. So now that we set the scene, this is always important. Okay, I know I'm lingering on this, but just I want to get to the narrative reality of it is when you're looking at your scenes, remember, setup is really important. So you have to set the atmosphere. What is the movement? What is going on, right? You don't have to start at the beginning. Like we didn't have to see Red coming out of the prison and Haywood behind him and them grabbing the baseball and them. You don't have to see that. Get right to the middle. Get to the movement. And the movement is Red is tossing the ball lazily, okay? And they're in the exercise, right? But you also don't want to create stagnation in your writing. So if that's the only description you do when it comes to setting up the scene, it'll slow down and distort the scene. So you want to make sure you maintain whatever it is you set up. In this case, the exercise room, and that they're playing with throwing the ball. You want to maintain that within the scene. I showed this movie to my ex a few years ago. She talked and yawned the whole time, then made a joke and laughed when Brooks. Oh, laughing at Brooks' death. Yes, that is the end of that relationship. My heart goes out to you, my friend. All right, so let's get into it. Offers his hand. So Andy, parentheticals is just behavior, like he has. Hey, what's doing? So hello, I'm Andy Dufresne. This is fantastic. This is plot. Okay, so there's a couple plots going on here. Andy takes this as a cue, so nods. Oh, yeah. Imagine being like Brooks dead. All right, so plot. So exercise is plot. Ray is Red. Red is playing baseball is plot. Red notices Andy is plot. Nods. Andy takes the nod. This is all plot, right? But then here we go. We're starting with plot, but also amble over adds a little bit of character because towards the end of the scene, remember Morgan Freeman or Red starts doing the voiceover. And he's like, I can see why people think he's a snob, because he's just Amble is a very important aspect to the character behavior within the scene because it's leading to why people think he thinks he's better than everyone else. Okay, so Red glance. Okay, hi, I'm Andy Dufresne. All right, Red glances at the hand, ignores it. Good stuff. That is behavior. This is also a choice. This is a character choice. So this is character development. Okay, the game continues. Red goes back to playing the game, right? So, in your novel, think of behavior as important as screenwriting. Because again, I've talked about this. In screenwriting, every line costs money because it costs time. Every page is broken down into eighths, right? And every eighth is more money. So to give the page a chance to have movement, to specifically show a physical behavior, it is narratively important that Red glances at the hand and ignores it. So that is why the author of this piece, the writer Frank Darabont, wrote that line. If you notice, there's not a lot more physicality out here, right? And there's only little beats. So when you're writing your novel and you're thinking, when people say, oh, your character's nodding too much or your character's smiling too much or your character's right, if that nod is earned behaviorally, or that smile, or that smirk, or the chuckle, or the laugh, or whatever the case is, whatever small physicality you do is earned by the behavioral truth of that character, not you as the writer going, I have too much dialogue, I want to add a little beat or a movement, so I'm just going to make them chuckle. If you're making them chuckle, then the character is not chuckling. Does that make sense? So Red glances at the hand, ignores it, is a behavioral position choice. Red has a position in how he views Andy Dufresne, and we learn about that at the end of the scene. We are seeding Red's position, and then we are refining it at the end of the scene when he's like, I can see why people think he's a snob. Okay? So that's something to think about, is every little element you choose should be adding to the plot forward, the character development, and the world building. So in this case, Red glances at the hand and ignores it isn't just plot, it's character development. But it's also not a pause or a beat between the dialogue. It is doing heavy work here. All right. So the other element is when we get to the game continues, Andy doesn't have any value here. So the game continues is important because it is saying that Andy Dufresne at this current state and time has no value. He's an aside thought, which is good because that's going to grow, right? Isn't that part of the arc, right? They end up becoming best friends. Andy becomes a part of the community. Andy earns his place. So the game continues is adding to the positions of all the inmates that hang out with Red. Now, in novel writing, no matter if it's screenplay or long form, You're supposed to challenge positions, even if the position is negative at first. Right now, the position is we don't know who you are, we don't care about you, we have no interest in you. So the position to challenge that is, what does Andy do later? He says, he goes, "Oh, do you trust your wife?" to the guard. Almost dies, and then the guard, he's like, I can help you save all that money that you got. You don't have to pay tax, not 1 cent. And he's like, really? You're the banker? And then he's like, well, what do you want for me? He's like, oh, some suds. I want some beers for everybody. But he himself doesn't drink the beers, but he does something at the risk of his own life, and then which challenges everybody's understanding of Andy Dufresne. And then Andy allows them to get a reward, and all he gets is just sitting there and enjoying watching everybody. So behavior is important to show positions, because you can tell, obviously you could have narration here, and Red could be like, I don't very much like Andy, or I don't see anything valuable about Andy. But instead you allow a line. This was obviously you know who what's this, the guy from the Godfather, why is his name Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando was notoriously famous for taking pages of dialogue and then going, nah, I'm just going to do this through behavior, and cutting the dialogue, and then just being able to perform that dialogue through nuance, through a glance, through silence, through eating. He was one of the first to casually eat chicken in a scene while being filmed. It's these choices that created behavior and truth. So that's what you should be thinking about. I know I'm going a long time on this, but as somebody who studies writing and studies narrative and studies character behavior, because also, I was a producer, writer, actor in the industry. So these are things that I think about as a writer when I'm moving into the long form narrative. Every little moment, doesn't matter how small it is, if it's going to earn the word count, because remember, everything you write is going to cost you word count. I think about it. It's not just there to be a thing. It's not a skip. It's not a he laughed. Like, if he's laughing or chuckling, the laugh is connected to the emotional truth of the dialogue or the response to, right? So now, obviously, if it was he chuckled, he laughed, he chuckled, they laughed, he chuckled, they both, right? That would be the same insanity as said, right? So you wanna make sure that things are working. I'm afraid I do that sometimes. Afghani, I'm sorry. Did I miss the? Did you just write this now? I'm sorry. What is that in reference to in the? I do this sometimes, and I'll be able to answer. Respond to that. I love how they use that crappy joke about the lawyer screwing them twice with Andy on opposite sides of it as different acting. It isn't funny, but it always makes me laugh. Oh, that's screwed me twice. I think I'm getting up to that beat. All right, so let's keep it going. All right. The wife killing banker. Oh, writing action during dialogue to fill space. All right. Just for everybody who's watching, this is not directed towards you, Afghani, but it is a great point that you're bringing up. You're not the only one who does it, I assure you. But the best way to make sure that the action you are creating isn't just filling space, but is connected to the behavior, is think about the emotional nuance of what the conversation is about. And then try to place yourself in that emotional truth. And what would you do? Right? This is where you get those, I'm going to say the word generic, but the generic hand fiddle with their fingers, or fiddle with a knife, or fiddle with a spoon. It's the generic, fist squeeze, right? That is the easiest way to say, all right, how do I connect the behavior? Because there's nothing wrong with having action during dialogue to create rhythm, to create beat, to create a pause, whatever the case is. The other thing about action that's so important is the character's thinking. So if let's say a character says, hey, are you still in for Friday? We need you. We need you. You're the getaway driver. If the character sits in that silence, if the character doesn't respond right away, The character is thinking. So you don't have to write. Sorry, I got cat hair on my thing. You don't have to write they thought in silence or they contemplated the risk. You don't have to do that. You can have it literally be like, "Hey, are you available Friday? Because we need you. You're the only one that could drive it, get us away, after we do what we got to do." And if you write that the character, grabs a hold of their Pepsi, settles into the silence, settles into the weight of the Pepsi, lifting it to their lips and taking a long gulp, bringing it down, wiping the soda from his face. Yeah, I'm there. All of that is showing the reader, okay? Writing that is showing the reader that it's not an easy yes. And now you don't have to spend time explaining that easy yes. You don't have to explain time that they're nervous or concerned or worried. Right? That's one of the powers. All right, of showing, but also the power of a behavioral beat within dialogue. Okay? I hope that helps. All right. So let's go. Hello, I'm Andy Dufresne. You're the wife killing banker. Right? How do you know that? I keep my ear to the ground. Why'd you do it? All right, so let's talk about them. Well, let me get to Afghani. There's something about long dialogue paragraphs that scares me. Well, I agree with that, and that's a good, strong instinct. Long monologues are great, but you need to break it up with movement, either with the environment itself, allow the speech to be influenced by the environment, and allow the speech to be influenced by internal emotion, and allow the speech to be influenced by other characters. They don't necessarily have to say anything, especially if it's a true monologue. But the other characters can emotionally react through behavior, physicality, etc., etc., etc. A character could get up and walk away, right? While the person's thinking. So it is important to break up. That is a good instinct to be worried about. But your job is to think, how do I break it up naturally through those emotional truths? All right, so the wife killing banker, how do you know that? I keep my ear to the ground. Why'd you do it? Okay, so before we even get to I keep my ear to the ground, the wife killing banker, Red knows things. Not only is this plot, but we are developing character for Red. Okay, Red knows things. This is the first time they're meeting. And this line tells the audience, without the audience having to think of it, because it's inferred, it's explained through subtext. I know things. That's a lot of power, and that is why Andy's like, "How do you know that?" Like, that's a moment. Well, how do you know that? Okay, so the wife killing banker not only is a plot, but it is indeed character development. We are learning a little bit about Red, and this is what invisible exposition looks like, or as I call it, character exposition. We are telling the reader something about Red through showing the dialogue choice. What did Red choose to say? He didn't choose to say, "I'm Red." He didn't choose to say, "You want to play." He didn't choose to say, "I'm not interested in talking to you." He chose. Red made a choice. The wife killing banker. That is an emotional choice and a position. We are feeding into the position that Red has. I don't trust you. You are indeed the wife killing banker. All right, so that's pretty solid, right? Okay, and then how do you know that? Andy is like, okay. Now, we got more. He's not scared to cut to the chase. Yes, that's all. Yes, that is also a behavioral truth. By the way, that creates a new position, right? Red is not scared to cut to the chase. Red has some moxie, as we call it, okay? All right. And that's the thing about behavior. That's the thing about the dialogue they choose to say. It creates positions. That's why it's so important to think about what they're saying and not necessarily worry about plot first with dialogue, if that makes sense. Because who is saying the dialogue to move the plot forward is more important than the dialogue is said to move the plot forward. I'll repeat that. Who says the dialogue to move the plot forward is more important than the dialogue being said to move the plot forward. Okay. All right. I keep my ear to the ground. Why'd you do it? All right. Again, very just as Flowers just said, cuts to the chase. I keep my ear to the ground. He basically bypasses Andy's question, still maintaining top position in the conversation. He has the power and control here because Andy is clearly coming to him for something. Even though he hasn't asked yet, he was waiting, and then Andy made the step forward. Andy is in the weaker position, okay? So I keep my ear to the ground is now adding to the wife-killing banker. Red knows things. Jumps right to it. Why'd you do it? So that means Red's position is, I believe in my heart that you, sir, killed your wife. This is nice, though. Andy's position is, I'm innocent. I didn't do it, right? I didn't, since you ask. Okay, this is great. I didn't, since you asked. Boop. Okay. Andy defends his position. So Andy's position, I am innocent, I did not kill my wife, is now being challenged. It is a direct challenge. Why'd you do it? Andy maintains, you know how I talk about whenever someone's position is challenged, it's either somewhat changed, completely changed, or not changed at all, and they double down? Andy doubles down. I didn't, since you asked. He is not changing his position that I am innocent, and he doubles down. I didn't, since you asked. Now, let's just experiment with this as an exercise, as a writing exercise. Let's say Andy somewhat changed. All right? So maybe Andy might go, I didn't, or at least I don't believe I did. I was drunk. That's a somewhat change. That means Andy's original position of I am innocent is now Andy is double guessing his. Maybe I was drunk. I just don't remember. I threw the gun away. I know I was drinking in the driveway, but I just don't. Maybe I did because I'm here. I have 20 years or whatever it is. I have a life sentence in prison. Maybe I did. I don't believe I did. That's a somewhat. Now, obviously, if it's a completely change, it doesn't mean that they believe the opposite. So if Andy believes that he is innocent, a complete change doesn't mean that he believes he is guilty. It just means he has basically left his original position, the I am innocent, and changed this to a new position, a new complete position, which might be like, I don't care if I was innocent or guilty. Like that becomes his new position that takes over the original position. All right. I didn't, since you asked. Hell, you'll fit right in here then, off Andy's look. Now, this is a great line, okay? This is also setting up a position. This is creating a position for the hospital, the prison. Hell, you'll fit right in then. That right? Everybody's here, right? And that's literally logical narrative movement. You'll fit in right then. Everyone's innocent in here, don't you know? Okay, so that's what logical narrative movement looks like. We're having it the whole time. I keep, how do you know? How do you know? Logical narrative movement. I keep my ear to the ground. We're going to continue on. Why'd you do it? Why'd you do it is actually connected to Red's first thought. Okay, so he's more interested in that. Andy responds to that. Okay, this is what they say about call and response when they talk about dialogue, right? You want to keep characters moving the dialogue forward and not necessarily, like, for example, if Red said, why'd you do it? Look, I'm here to, I want to get something from you. You could do that. You could do that. All right. Remember, you're the writer, but we're not there yet. Logically, we haven't earned the ask. We haven't earned why Andy is here. So the call and response to dialogue is you as a writer have to ask the question or present the dialogue, and then who responds to that is based on those characters' positions and what they care about. Right now, Red cares about, did you really kill your wife? Okay. But of course, Red's position is like, all right, okay, you didn't kill him. You'll fit right in here. Everyone's innocent, don't you know? All right, Haywood, what are you in for? Okay. Mind the language. I didn't do it. Laura ucked me. Right? Laura ucked me. I'm saying uck, everybody. I'm saying uck. Laura ucked me. Keep in mind, I curse a lot in my books, though. All right. Lawyer ucked me. All right. This is great. All right. It's showing character. Haywood just had one line. This is the thing I talk about. I've mentioned this before, you know. When a writer says, I need time to develop the character, no, you do not. You need one line. Technically, it's 2 lines. But that didn't do it. If we took away the other part, that's still doing a lot of work for Haywood. Meep. Well, you're reading my epic fantasy. You know there's a little bit of cursing in that book. Anyway, one line. Didn't do it. Now, let's look at this real quick. Red gives Andy a look. See? Now, in literature or narrative, long form narrative, you could write this. You could be like, Red looked at Andy, right? Or you could create a behavior of it. You could go a little deeper than that. Andy Red side-eyed Andy with assurance, his glare filled with assurance or whatever, or he had an assured glare on his face, or, I told you so. Like, you could pretty much do anything you want. You don't have to just say, he looked at Andy, because he looked at Andy isn't necessarily explaining the narrative truth. It's sort of like, it would be going back to, it's just a beat. It's a physical beat. All right. Let's keep going. What else have you heard? This is great. This is going back to, how'd you know? But it's also fueling on Red knows stuff, and Andy is starting to accept Red's position that Red knows stuff. So he's digging. Andy is trying to gain footing in this conversation. What else have you heard? Okay. People say you're a cold fish. Now, obviously, people say is really Red. Red, we're now learning more. We're seeding more of Red's position. So let me take a second to explain the value of the discovery of this position. Red could have easily started off with Andy saying, hello, I'm Andy Dufresne. Red looks at his hand and goes, the wife-killing banker? Why'd you do it? Right? Why'd you do it? People say you're a cold fish. They say you think your shite smells sweeter than ordinary. Is that true? That could literally have been this whole first line. All right? Pacing-wise, that's considered slow pace because remember, pace is the speed at which information is presented to the reader. So in that case, that would have been a slow pace beat, but it also wouldn't be doing anything now. You have just taken away the strength of the discovery. All right. And that's what I mean when I talk about finding something, that becomes like a chunk of exposition technically, right? Because it's just exposition telling you how Red feels about Andy. So when you see chunks of dialogue, or you see chunks of exposition, or you see chunks of narrative, your job is as simple as that. Taking what I just did as the example, the wife-killing banker, why'd you do it? Some people say you're cold fish. No, break it up. Let it have a call and response. The wife-killing banker, how'd you know that? I keep my ear to the ground. Now we get a little deeper with Red, though. We get to, because it's not really about Red thinking Andy is a killer. It's that Red is a part of the conversation, okay? He says, here, let me cut up. Sweet, isn't it? I can even hear. That's I keep my ear to the ground. I can't do anything. I can do, walking, but Red as walking would be weird. All right. I didn't sense. Anyway, my point is, when you're looking at chunks, okay, of dialogue, or chunks of exposition, or chunks of narrative, think about how you could break it up and spread it throughout a scene. Because again, if you're doing 3,000 word chapter, or even 1,000 word chapter, you have the beginning, a middle, and end to play with this information. And there's nothing wrong with spreading that information out, because what you're doing is giving readers a chance to sit in that discovery. It builds more engagement because there's more movement emotionally and narratively, but it also allows readers to slowly accept and hear things a character. Now, when you're watching a movie or you're reading a book, you're not sitting there going, "Oh, that's an interesting position. Oh, that's how, right?" But your brain, the way we absorb information, is doing that work. That is the invisible element of exposition, is when the reader doesn't have to think about it. They are just accepting the truth because it is clear in the subtext. That's the power of subtext, right? Good subtext is something that just kind of feels accurate. All right. We know that Red is a little curious about Andy in the sense that he's like, Andy's a killer. Like, this is how I feel. Right. But seed out things, break it up, let beats happen. You don't have to, you do trust the reader. I know they're supposed to say dumb down your writing because readers are stupid, but it's not necessarily true. You have to trust that the reader's going to understand. That is one of the big fears that a lot of my clients, and also screenwriting and long form writing, they fear people won't know enough to A, connect with the characters, or B, understand what's going on. But I promise you, it's okay to evolve the narrative over the course of discovery, allowing beats. Besides, what's the difference if you say it in one big chunk or you spread it out over a page or even 2 pages? Well, the big difference is I probably won't remember all of that chunk, but also I just felt like boom. But if you spread it out, I'm now in the moment. I'm watching the moment. It's like watching 2 people arguing on the street or watching 2 people laughing. It's more engaging because if you give the information to the reader in a chunk, it's not engaging because you're just informing them of stuff. But if they are slowly learning stuff, they're developing questions, right? So if one piece of information comes out and it's like, oh, what is that about? And then you answer it in the exact next sentence. But if you let that question linger, just saying. All right. They say you think your shite smells sweeter than ordinary. Is that true? And then Andy does not take a position on this. Because, well, Andy's position is that he doesn't believe it. But Andy is now trying to take control of the conversation. Not dominate it, but take back control because he's on the bottom, right? And Andy says, what do you think? He's giving it back to Red. He's, by the way, throwing the baseball back. Because they're going back and forth. Right? Well, what do you think? Okay. So, Red says, ain't made up my mind yet. But the subtext is, I think he has. I think he has. But it's really good. Now, you might be saying, Thomas, the plot doesn't feel like it's moving forward, right? Shouldn't Andy be getting to like, hey, I'm here to buy a poster or a rock cutter, right? Shouldn't we be there? But the plot is still moving because remember, character arcs are important. There is the central conflict, which, by the way, this is leading to. Okay, there's a central conflict, and then there's the character arcs themselves. So Andy and Red's character arcs are moving. But believe it or not, Andy is in prison because he killed his wife and the lover. But he didn't, right? What is the second line of dialogue? The second line of dialogue is challenging the central conflict, the wife killing banker. But it is also allowing us to understand who these characters are, what they care about. Okay? Is it true or not true? How'd you know about that? That's still within the field. Why'd you do it is still about the central conflict. But it's invisible. Because it feels like these two are just talking about nothing. That's why it's so good. All right. Andy says, I didn't, since you asked. Still part of the central conflict. Hell, you'll fit in right here. This is a seed to the reveal that Andy is actually innocent and that the way the system works, That one line is not just saying, hey, we're all innocent here. Ha 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 ha. It is fueling the premise of the narrative. Okay? Everyone's innocent here, don't you know? Haywood, what are you here for? Right? This is all very much connected to the central conflict. All right. Haywood judges Jigger. Watch this. He winds up and throws the ball hard right at Andy's head. I don't actually think that happens. This is not in the movie. I do like that if when you read screenplays and stuff like that, you can look at that, you could play with that. Because when you're on set, things change all the time. I do not think he throws the ball at Andy's head. Andy sees it coming out of the corner of his eyes, whirls and catches it. Beat. He sends the ball right back, digging it. I don't remember that happening. Yeah, no, he's just like kind of playing. He's like fidgeting with his hands. It doesn't matter. All right. This is technically a Haywood character beat. This is not plot. Well, the plot. I guess the plot is he's testing Andy, but really it's character because we are learning who Haywood is in that beat. All right. Anyway, so after we get, by the way, that's a page. Look how tight that is. That's a page. So in the book, in a narrative, that would probably be 300, maybe 400 words. If you're going to include physical behavior, if you're going to include sensory elements, if you're going to, because I believe in the film, you're getting a sense of the surrounding. There's the background actors. We can see, they have an establishing shot. They do a double. They do a medium. They do a close up. But we also turn. We do, we get to see Haywood and everything. So as you're writing, this actually is a good exercise for anybody. Watch the scene and then write the scene, but keep the frames, keep the lens work. Who are we seeing? So while they're talking, it's not in here, but we see Red throwing the ball. So you have to maintain the ball being thrown. It doesn't have to be maintained in a script because, again, every line costs money. We already know they're playing baseball. Well, not playing baseball, but throwing the ball. But in a book, you have to maintain the illusion of the environment because it's not a visual medium. It's a literal medium, right? So as you're writing and they're talking, wife, Red grabs the ball and holds it. Wife killing banker. Andy says, how do you know? And then Red says, I keep my ear to the ground, tossing the ball to Haywood. Why'd you do it? I didn't since you asked. Andy flicks some rock dust out of his hand because I think he's playing with rocks or something like that. The ball whaps into Red's glove. Hell, you'll fit right in then. Looks off of Andy. Everyone, and you would say, he gestured the his mid around. Everyone's innocent here, don't you know? Haywood, what are you in for? Tosses the ball back. Haywood grabs Hayward catches the ball in one quick motion. Didn't do it. Lawyer ucked me. Red gives right. So you have to maintain the movement still, even though. Anyway, that's one page. That's a strong, clean, tight page. And when you're reading your book, when you're reading a page, you should be thinking about that too. Is the movement, is the behavior, is the narrative descriptions, is the sensory, the immersion, the dialogue, is it all serving a purpose? If it is, it's earning its place on the page. And that's the difference between something that's, I want to say the word concise, but when I say concise, I don't mean to remove the personality. I don't mean to remove your author voice. What I mean is you're removing fluff, the uninteresting stuff. If you could say in one behavioral movement, like a line or two, more than you can say in exposition, do the behavior. If you can't show the behavior, right? You can't show the hesitation, you can't show the emotional truth, then you have to add the exposition. But there is exposition and then there's exposition. You don't have to say the character lingered in their anger, comparing, Jason to their own brother who they lost 6 years ago due to the Afghan war. or whatever. You don't have to say that in the dialogue. You can infer it, you can show behavior to it. In fact, the character might just be dismissive of Jason. The character might not want to look Jason in the eye. That creates behavior, and that you could do more with less in that situation than explaining the whole backstory. But now you could take that backstory you have that you really want the reader to know, and you could seed it through the chapters and slowly divulge that this character actually looks at Jason as somebody that reminds him of his brother who he lost in a war, right? So that's what I mean when I say, all right, let's look at it. We're doing pretty good here. Andy sees, oh, you did that right. I understand you're a man. Okay, so page 2, the second minute is jumping right into the need. Remember, every scene has, right? Every character has a need, right? A want, a motivation. Andy's motivation from the start has been, I got to get something from you. And remember, you got to challenge everything. That first scene, that first page, the challenge was Red was challenging Andy's innocence, okay? Or Andy believes he's innocent, so he was challenging that. Now, we're setting up his want. I understand you're a man who knows how to get things, right? Okay. Now, Red has to challenge that. He has to become maybe yes, maybe no. Maybe yes, maybe no, okay? So I understand you're a man who get things, who knows how to get things. Red says, I'm known to locate certain things from time to time. They seem to fall into my hands. Maybe it's because of my... All right, well, this part is actually not in... it's just the first part is in it, right? So I'm known to locate certain things from time to time. Andy goes, I wonder if you could get me a rock hammer. What is it and why? And this is... Andy says... You make your customers, well, this line is different in the movie too, but you make your customers' motives a part of your business. Andy just says, why do you need to know? Right? Red catches the ball and he stops. He goes, well, if you wanted a toothbrush, I wouldn't ask questions. I just quote a price. Toothbrush, see, is a non-lethal sort of object. Andy says, fair enough. I think this isn't there. This first part is in the movie. If you wanted a toothbrush, I wouldn't ask questions. I just quote a price, you know. And he says, fair enough. A rock hammer is about 8 or 9 inches long. Why is this important? It's seeding how it hides in the Bible. It's seeding it's 8 to 9 inches long. It's seeding that it's a small, inconvenient, a small, nonchalant nothingness. It's not a threat. It's just a 9-inch long hammer. You know, it looks like a miniature pickaxe with a small, sharp pick on one end and blunt hammered on the other. It's for rocks. It's nothing, right? Red says rocks. Now the rocks, that's also seeding stuff. We're seeding the chess pieces to come. You know what I'm saying? We're seeding a lot of stuff. So it isn't just Andy saying, I want a rock hammer. We are learning. Oh, hey, kitty. We're learning that Red is somebody who can locate things from time to time. We're learning that Andy needs something, but we don't know why yet. Okay, we don't know why yet. Okay, I wonder if I need a rock hammer. The rock hammer is literally a part of the main central conflict. Spoiler alert, it's how he gets out of here, right? So, also the toothbrush comment is very funny. But more importantly, we now know the size of the hammer, all this other stuff, etc., etc. Andy squats, motions Red to join him. Andy grabs a handful of dirt and shifts it through his hands. He finds a pebble. This actually happens, but I don't think Red kneels down. But he's like, quartz, sure. And look, Micah, shell. This conversation is a little cut up and cleaned up for the acting part, but the general understanding is we're learning what kind of rocks he wants. Very simple. The third page. By the way, we got the motivation. We got everything in the second page. Great stuff. Tight. Here's the third page. There's some graded limestone from when they cut this place out in the hill. This part is not in the movie, I believe. I'm a rock hound. At least that goes right to this. I'm a rock hound. At least I was in my old life. I'd like to be again on a limited scale. This isn't so important. This is a position. It's also why Andy acts like he's not really in prison. He walks as if he doesn't have a care in the world, right? It's like that whole feel. This is seeding that position, is explaining he just wants to feel normal. He doesn't want to allow these walls, these prison walls, to take away his freedom. He wants to try to maintain some semblance. It's so important. Okay. Red says, yeah, but that or maybe plant your toy in somebody's skull. And goes, I have no enemies here. And then Red says, no, just wait. Here is another character arc, another plot point that we are building on. Red flicks his gaze past Andy. Boggs is watching them. Word gets around the sisters have taken a real shine to you. Yes, they have, especially Boggs. I think that's a little cut up in the movie version, but word gets around the sisters have taken a real shine to you, especially Boggs. Maybe. Anyway, so we are introducing a new character. We are introducing a position to that character. We are introducing a faction, which is the sisters. Red is actually giving Andy a heads up. That is interesting because Red's position on Andy being a murderer and not a good guy and somebody I don't want anything to do with has just been somewhat changed to the point where Red was comfortable enough and felt it prudent to warn Andy. And why did that happen? There was no dialogue or explanation of it, but the behavior of their interaction led Red to this new revelation, internal revelation. Tell me something. This part's not there, but it says, would it help if I explained to them I'm not homosexual? That line is there. Neither are they. You have to be human first. I don't think he says don't qualify, but anyway. This also is not the bull. That's this line is. I'll grow eyes in your back of your head. Again, Red is protecting Andy. He's giving him a heads up. This is important. This is showing the finer beginnings of a relationship, of a friendship. But it didn't just happen. Both characters are being challenged in this scene. Red's opinion of Andy is being challenged, and Andy's understanding of this prison is being challenged because he thought, I could just go back to having my life as I knew it outside. I'm going to go back to rock carving. And it's like, no, life is going to be a little different here. And then Andy says, thanks for the advice. That comes free, but you understand my concern. Well, okay. If there's trouble, I doubt a rock hammer will do me any good. Then I guess you want to escape. Tunnel on. Or clearly, this is about the central conflict, but it's making it's a wink to the audience because the audience, it was a good twist, right? Then I guess you want to escape. Tunnel under the wall, maybe. I missed the joke. What's so funny? Well, oh, by the way, here is a laughter. Right? Don't make your characters laugh. Well, sometimes it is emotionally important. He is having a true emotional response. 2, then I guess you want to escape tunnel under the wall, maybe. And he knows the dramatic irony. The thing is too small for that. Which is actually very funny because the dramatic irony for us as viewers who have watched it already know that Andy doesn't understand that it is indeed the thing that will lead to his escape, right? Spoiler. But he has a natural reaction to the laugh. But politely is doing a lot of work here. This is a behavioral choice. Andy laughs is different than Andy laughs politely. And I know there's an extra word, but it's the subtext to the behavior. Okay, so if you were writing this in a narrative, you might use politely, but if you don't want to use a ly word, you would show the behavior of that laughter and not just be like Andy laughs, because politely is a different narrative beat. All right, you'll know when you see the rock hammer. Very funny. What's this item usually go for? $7 in any rock and gem. This is important because we are learning how the system, this is all world building now. Okay, how the system works. The thing costs $7. All right, my standard markup is 20%. World building, we're learning. But we're talking about a specialty object. Risk goes up, price goes up. Excellent. Excellent. We are learning the rules of the magic. Right? So if we were learning the magic system, that's what it looks like. This is what invisible world building looks like, okay? Risk goes up, price goes up. Call it $10 even. 10 it is. I'll see what I can do. All right. But it's a waste of money. Oh, folks who run this place love surprise inspections. This is more world building, but it's also seeding what's to come. It's seeding the behavior of the warden later when they toss Andy's cell to do sort of like a who is this guy? The warden comes in, he sizes Andy up. So we are seeding. That's what I mean. Like when you're writing your books and you get to like chapter 15 and you're like, oh, you know, it'd be great. The warden comes in and sizes Andy up and he tosses the cell. You're supposed to look at your scenes that come from later chapters and say to yourself, can I foreshadow this? Because that's what it is, right? You're foreshadowing surprise inspections. So you have to say to yourself, how could I go back and kind of add to chapters where it doesn't seem because it doesn't seem pointing really. You know, it's like, hey, they love the surprise inspections, and it's just a throwaway line. They turn a blind eye to some things, but not a gadget like that. They'll find it and you'll lose it. Mention my name, we'll never do business again. Not for a pair of shoelaces or a stick of gum. That's also world building and setting the rules of how red works or how the system works. But it is doing a lot of work. One line. That's what I mean. You do not have to go into these deep, unfolding exposition dumps to explain or foreshadow. This is one line of dialogue, and it does the work. Now, obviously, later on, we get some inspections, we get some tossed cells, but not necessarily Andy. But you have to maintain the consistency of the rules of the world, and that's what that shows, and that was me. I understand. Thank you, Mr. Red. The name's Red. Red, I'm Andy. Pleasure doing business with you. All right. Now, the line they took out is when Andy goes, why did they call you Red? So that goes here. It goes, the name's Red. Why did they call you Red? And he goes, and then Red goes, I think it's because I'm Irish. Such a good character beat. Such a good character beat. All right. This is the last little rhythm of it, and then we're done. They shake. Andy strolls off. I don't think, do they shake? I don't remember. But Andy definitely strolls off. Strolls off is the behavioral. You need this. And same thing with Red watches. So this is why it's written in the script. So when you're writing your book, why is what you wrote there? Remember, this helped me so much when it came to writing and developing books and everything else when I work with people. In a script, this line costs money. So if I'm putting it there and I know it's going to cost money because it's another, we have to film that. That has to be on camera, right? So that means first of all, Andy strolls off is a new cut. It's a shot. It's a setup. So it's a shot. It's a new cut. It's a setup. That could take 30 minutes to 2 hours. What? Now background has to go hang out and wait for them to get the shot ready. They got stand-ins to come in and make sure the lighting looks good. In fact, is the lighting still good? Did we take too long to film the first part of the scene? Do we have to come back the next day? That's for one little shot. Now, obviously, the shot gets this, right? The shot will have the voiceover on it. But my point is, when you're writing, you should be thinking about your word budget. So not the money budget, but the word budget. So everything you're putting on that page, is it worth it? Even though this is a quick thought, they shake, Andy strolls off, Red watches. I don't believe they shake in this shot, but Andy strolls off and Red watches is narratively important. Strolls off is character behavior that is reflective of Andy's position and the way he sees himself within this prison and how he tries to maintain normalcy. And then Red watches him go off is not Red just watching him. Red is questioning his own position on this. And that is why we get to this really great character beat. I could see why some of the boys took him for snobby. He had a quiet way about him, a walk and a talk that just wasn't normal around here. He strolled like a man in a park without a care or a worry, like he had on an invisible coat that would shield him from this place. Yes, I think it would be fair to say I liked Andy from the start. Oh, so good. So good. So good. So it's real strong character. What happens here? Red's position from the beginning of this scene, which by the way it started way back. Because when Andy first shows up, they all bet on what fish is going to break, and Red bets that Andy is a tall something or other that could get his blown over with a good burst of wind or whatever. Red bets that Andy's going to be the one who breaks, and Andy doesn't. Andy doesn't break, and Red lost. He lost cigarettes from that. And then you have the next scene, which is they sit down for food, and Andy goes to eat, and there's a maggot, and then Brooks says, "You gonna eat that?" And Andy goes, "Not particularly." And he goes, "You mind?" And then he gives it to Brooks. Brooks gives it to the bird. That's the first seed of the developing friendship, because Red sees Andy's compassion, or empathy, I should say, and compassion, I guess. But this is the moment. This is the moment where they officially meet, and this is where Red is like, "Yeah, all right, I like this guy. I like him." All right, so there you go. That's a quick scene. I just want to kind of give my final thoughts on it, and then we'll get to the poll. So, what is it I'm really trying to get out of this to really show people, and what is this video that I'm doing? What is the purpose of this? This is a screenplay, Tom. How's this going to help me? There are a couple things I want you to take from this, okay? The first one is, again, when it comes to word budget, make sure what you write has purpose. That's why they say every line should serve a purpose. I usually relate that to every line should have one or more of these three things: plot forward, character development, or world building. It could have more than one of those. Okay, so you could do some plot and character in a line. You could do plot and world in a line. You could just do character in a line. You could do character and world, whatever. You can mix it up, but every line should be doing something, even if it's a character, as Afghani said earlier, where he's like, "I get worried about filling dialogue with action to fill spaces." Even if it's a chuckle or a laugh or a glance, or he puts his head on his hand, right? If that doesn't make sense through emotions, through the behavioral truth of the character, just get rid of it. You don't need it. If it's just to make, because like, oh, I want to describe the way this can looks. Well, what does it matter what the can looks? In a book, if Thomas lifts his Pepsi can, covered in cherries and silver lining and the Pepsi logo. What is that doing? Thomas lift the can covered in cherries and silver and the Pepsi logo. Is that doing anything? Not necessarily. Now, if we're in third person limited or first person, Thomas lifted the let's do a third person. Thomas lifted the can of Pepsi, staring at the cherries as his father's words tick through his mind. So whatever his father had just said. So now the emotional beat is that he's actually holding in the moment. The cherries aren't actually important, but they are important in the sense of like it's a focus point, right? He stares at the cherries, taking a moment, letting his father's words lament in his mind. Another thing you could do is Thomas lifted up the can of Pepsi. The cherries, cherries stood out, and then you could go back to a flashback. He lifted the soda to his mouth, and his 12-year-old hand gripped the can, coming down as kids screamed and tossed the ball around, and now he's back in his childhood so it narratively connects to that. You don't want to just be like, "Oh, we got something now. I'll finish my thing." It's showing the process in reverse. We've all seen the movie. Now we can see the bare bones. So yeah, absolutely. That is the point. Is how do you look at your own writing? That's a great second point. All right. How do you look at your own writing after you write it? You know what it is. You know what you're trying to say as a narrative, and now you're physically looking at it. When you look at it, reverse engineer that scene. What is working? What is not working? What is relevant? What is potent? Pertinent. Do these behavioral choices, do the dialogue beats connect directly to the character's truth, to their behavior. There is a different way I'm going to enter a room, be in a room, and explore that room than somebody else. It doesn't even matter if they're my twin. I don't have a twin, but if I had a twin, there's no way we're both walking in that room and having an identical experience. Okay? It's impossible because we are different people. Yeah, they're the twins. What is it? Twins telepathy, where they're like, lift your arm, and they both lift it up. That's different. What I'm talking about is every single second, every single nuance of information being collected from both me and, say, a twin is going to be different. What they notice and what I notice first are not always going to be the same, right? So it's good to understand what it is you wrote, but then go back and do the work. The other thing I'm trying to get out of this is the dialogue is so clean, it's so smooth, and it's flying through. Now, in a narrative, again, hello, I'm Andy Dufresne. You can have an action beat there if you want. Obviously, there is for Red, okay, because Andy, he offers his hand. So in the narrative, Andy raised his hand, offered his hand to Red. Well, technically, this is in Red's POV. So Andy, since it's in Red's POV, if it's third person limited, it wouldn't be Andy offered his hand to Red. I guess it could be. I know it'd be he. He offered his hand to Red. Hello, I'm Andy Dufresne. Red glanced at the hand, ignoring it. Right? He tossed the ball. It wouldn't say he continued the game. You want to have action. You want to have movement. He tossed the ball to Haywood. The wife killing banker. How'd you know that? Right? The ball slaps back into his glove. I keep my ear to the ground, tossing the ball once again. Why'd you do it? All right. So in a narrative, you would keep the narrative, the dialogue going. But my point is, look at your dialogue. Look at its purpose. Okay. There is a difference between stuttering. Stuttering comes from an emotional truth. Even a character that stutters normally, not stutters, but just stammers, doesn't always do it. If depending on how confident they are in a moment. There's a character I have in the epic fantasy Devious. He's a protagonist. There are times when he has trouble getting words out, not because he has a stutter, but because his emotions really do drive him. So sometimes he's confident and he's like a part of the group and he's just talking, and other times he's just like, I don't. Why would this happen? And then he does a lot of shifting of his thoughts. You have to think of your characters in that sense, so their dialogue needs to reflect that. But my point is, write out your dialogue in your zero draft, first draft, even your second draft. But by the time you get to your third draft, you should really be looking at your dialogue. Every line, every word. I know that sounds crazy. It sounds crazy. But there are days where I used to work with a team and we were working on a script, or we were at a writing table, or whatever, whatever. If I was the showrunner or someone else was a showrunner, or whatever, handling it, we just write out the scripts, but then we do the work. And you look at these lines. How can we clean this up? Could we punch this up? Could we add a joke? Could we take a joke away? Does this feel like that character? Because you want to get it tight. Now, don't get me wrong. There's some things that we ran into where this got moved out and rearranged to later on, the Irish thing. Maybe it's because I'm Irish. Okay. All that got cut and moved. You could do that on set. But when you're writing, that's a great analogy. When you're writing the script, it could end up looking like this. When you're writing your book, this is a zero first or even a second draft, okay? It's tight enough to say we're ready to shoot. But when you get to your third draft, I know, baby. When you get to your third draft, you're on set filming, you got the camera, you got the crew. So when you're writing your novel in the third draft, that's when you get to play. That's when you get to say, should I move this line? Should I clean this line up? Do I need this whole dialogue beat? Can I move this dialogue beat here and change it around there? You can try things in that third draft where you're finalizing things. You're trying to make sure it's all working. Do not be afraid of that. I know, baby. I know. All right. That's it. Any questions? Any questions on what we talked about today before I get to the poll? We could do that real quick. We could do let's see. Yeah, ask me questions. Well, we're waiting for the questions. Let me do the whole spiel. Let me get the spiel going on there. Okay. Hey, if you didn't know, I have books available at makearightleft.com. That's right. We got the exclusively on the Patreon account. You go to the Scribe tier, and in the Scribe tier, you can check out Death of the King. For anyone who doesn't know, Death of the King, the whole first act is currently available, even though I release one chapter at a time. The whole first act is available. All right. I have cat hair all over my face. The whole first act, all 25 chapters are available currently on that Scribe, but also I educate and I talk about and I break down the chapters, my choices, and the educational element of that. So boom, that's available. This book, 27 Plot Point Outline, is currently available. Now remember, it is not just how to outline. It talks about narrative in a way that helps also people who are pantsers or intuitive writers. Feel free to read the book. It'll explain what narrative is and how to function through those beats and what you should be writing towards, but not necessarily worrying about outlining itself. The book is basically broken into two parts. It's what is narrative and the narrative beats that are important, and then how to outline is the second half of the book. And of course, if you're trying to be successful, remember, I've been doing this for over 20 years. I have been in the industry in all fashions, from music to illustration to comedy to you name it, I've done it. And this is book 1 of 5. The second book is currently in the works. As far as my noir, I am on chapter 9 of the noir series. I am flying through that book. I am super excited about that book. It is a fantasy crime thriller noir. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe and hit the bell icon, especially if you're loving what you're watching. And other than that, you gotta bloop that beard and bloop that like button. The engagement definitely helps. All right, let's get back to it. Thank you for that. I love this. Thank you. Thank you, Flowers. Look, who am I? If you weren't here, if people weren't, who am I going to tell? Who am I going to teach? I do this on my spare time for myself. This is the kind of stuff I like doing. I like studying books. I like studying the screenplays. I like studying and honing my skills. But I was really looking forward to doing this. I know I've done a couple chapters beforehand. I did Game of Thrones and I did Heroes, but I was really looking forward to this one because this is where I started. It was a screenplay, so it was nice to kind of jump on that. Are screenplays easier or more difficult? The answer is neither of those would be a yes. Screenplays are as difficult to write as a narrative, a novel. I'll put it to you. I'll frame it like this. I think I've said this before. Somebody asked me what's harder to learn, bass or guitar. If you don't know how to play either one of them, they are both equally difficult to learn. Somebody once also said, is it easier to learn guitar on acoustic or electric? Now, that's where the nuance comes in. And the reason is because the feel of an acoustic is different than the electric. So that's where I would talk about genres. So is it easier to write? Let's say you know how to write long form narrative, a book, and someone says, what do you normally write in? I normally write in sci-fi, and that's my electric guitar. And then you go, but I'm trying to write in fantasy or romance. That would be the acoustic guitar. You can still play the acoustic guitar, but there is a learning curve in the sense of getting comfortable with things. You're getting comfortable with the movement of it. But a guitar and a bass, if you've never played either one of them, are equally. So that my answer to you is, are screenplays easier or more difficult? Screenplays are as difficult, if not the same, as learning how to write a book. It's just a different medium. It's like playing baseball or football. They're both very difficult to learn, but they are not the same. I'm halfway through chapter 2. Ooh, you're on Rite of Passage. I like that chapter. I enjoyed that chapter. Anytime I could get those characters together, just sort of have like a nice little moment, I love it. But then someone stuck up alive. My bad. I need to finish the blurb by tomorrow. Well, Afghani, write the blurb out like you did. Pop it up on. If you want it more privately, just email it to me. I'll give it a little read too. Give you a little something. If you want to just pop it back up in the Facebook writing group, feel free to. It's nice to just get some feedback on that. But other than that, all right, let's talk about it. Poll. And again, if anyone has any questions about what I did today, if you want me to go into it, I'll be happy to discuss it. Oh, we got another. Sean says, I heard you mention narrative IQ the other day. It seems like a lot of what you talked about today deals with that. Are there some helpful resources, exercises to help build narrative? Yes. This is a great question. So the resources that you could really look into is this. Believe it or not, like I said, the beginning of this book is all. You already have this book, but the beginning of this book is all narrative understanding, not necessarily outlining. It's explaining the narrative beats and rhythms of a book. It also explains how to look at narrative differently and also talks about character development. All right. But the things you could do, the exercises, is basically what we did today. Now, obviously, if you don't read screenplays, I would recommend doing it with novels. What I do is just like I do on the other series, I read the chapter, but I'll read it page by page. And in the page, I'm trying to understand, is this setup? Is this conflict? Is this resolution? Clearly, if it's at the beginning of the chapter, it's more likely setup than it is resolution. But the thing you should be looking for is you look at the dialogue and say, what is this dialogue doing? All right. Now, you might not know because you didn't read the book or something, or it's just the first time you're reading a book. If I were you, I would do it with a book you've learned or read already and you sort of understand, just so you can kind of catch what's to come, if that makes sense. If you're reading dialogue, you're like, oh, wow, now that I'm like examining this, I see the foreshadowing. The cat hair is all in my nose. So that's an exercise you could do is you break down chapters from other books, especially books you've already read. That's a really great exercise. The other thing is that obviously that resource is available, but if you're going to get something like Save the Cat or something like that, I would recommend looking at that book in a way not to outline your story, but what are you getting from it? What is narrative? Things like that. Another exercise you could do, by the way, is you could do the practice run of writing a scene, just the 300-word scene, or you could do like a bullet point understanding of what needs to happen in a scene. Like, say there's 3 characters and you're like, this character has this position, this character has this position, and this character has that position. The goal of the scene is to do XYZ, and then you want to make sure that each character has an opposition to the goal. One character should technically want the thing, and then the other 2 characters should be the opposition, but different oppositions. And that'll help you practice. And then when you're done, study the scene, look at it, make judgment calls, because that's what writing really is asking questions. And that's an exercise too, is to basically break it up after you wrote it and say, am I accomplishing things? And then look at your sensory immersion, look at your narrative flow, look at the dialogue, and do exactly the thing I said earlier. Is it earning its word count? Is this fluff? Do I need this? Wow, I explained a lot here. This is exposition. This feels like I feel like I'm talking to the audience. Could I put that into behavior? So that's part of the exercise, is asking questions, is doing the work. Because writing isn't just getting out a draft. You also, as a writer, yes, you should be hiring editors and stuff like that. But part of the process is doing the questionings afterwards, because you have to make choices. You have to ask yourself, is this scene doing what I needed to do? Am I lingering too long? Am I explaining too much? Because remember, vague but informative. Vague but informative. Hope that helps. Here's one I made earlier. Did you send it? What happened? I don't see it. Am I missing it? What am I missing? I'm missing something I can't see. All right. Oh, yes, I have learned a lot from the 27 PPO book. I'm really glad that the book is helping you, Sean. I had a lot of fun writing that book. Yeah. Oh, I got this book in the library too. They just took, so now I have 2 books in the library. That's really exciting. They were like, "Oh, I love your cover." I was like, "Thank you." All right. I checked my mailbox today, and the book had arrived. Awesome. Began reading it before your lesson. Ro, I hope you're loving it. And remember, as always, you could ask me questions, send them through an email, and I'm here for you. Thank you again for buying it. I really, really, really appreciate it. I hope I put a little something inside it. I gave you a little something. My handwriting though is terrible. I wish I could have just, chicka on that with the keyboard. Cool, thanks. That does help. Fantastic, SB. You're a great teacher, but oh, thank you, Sean. Remember, what they say when you're in school. Don't kiss up to the teacher. I'm like, no, kiss up to the teacher. Bring me chocolate, bring me pizza. That's all I'm saying. All right, let's get to the poll. What is or would be the hardest feedback to hear? All right, we have 4 choices. We have characters, plot, etc. were boring. All right, in this sense is that one of these elements or more than one of these elements were boring. They weren't connecting. They weren't engaging. Characters weren't doing anything. All right, that's a little bit different than I was bored. It was hard to finish, which is the second one. And then we have the third one, which is I have to stop reading it. That's a hard one to hit. And then random nitpicking amateur critiques, oh, I don't understand why. What are you doing, kitty? I don't understand why this character's not, sleeping. They should be napping. Anyway, yes, it's always encouraging your notes. Fantastic. All right, so 0, the 4th place is random nitpicking. I really feel like I might pick that. That's something I would pick. However, I think that's the one that would actually, that's the one that hits the hardest, because I'm always I'm like, why is that the thing you're focusing on? Though to be fair, there are some battles in the book, in the epic fantasy book, like real battles, not the trials, but like real battles. And people are just, their nitpick is just like, do you need therapy? And I go, yes. Yes, I need therapy. They're like, it's very, very aggressive. All right, number 3, I had to stop reading at 23%. Fair enough. Number 2 is characters, plot, etc. boring, 31%. And then of course the winner, remember there's no wrong answer. I was bored, it was hard to finish. That is a pretty solid hit me in the gut kind of feedback. I could agree with that. 46%. I was bored. Oh, we got some chooser ones. Option 1, fantastic. Characters, plot, yeah. And by the way, for anyone, that could just be like, oh, I didn't like the characters weren't connecting with me, but I was able to finish the book. I got through it. Or the plot was confusing, or the plot just, I didn't really, the plot didn't do anything. They had to get the sword of blue bloop, and then they got it, and then like they beat the dragon. Like I didn't feel there was any pushback. It could be world building. Your world building was weird, or I didn't really learn anything about the world building. The world buildings felt uninteresting. As an aside for writers out there, to make characters interesting, I have a video I put up on my reels and the shorts where I talk. I have a little something in there. But for anyone who hasn't watched, I'll tell you right now. I'll go right to it. I'll just tell you. So I talk about 3 very important things. I talk about positions, challenge, and behavior. So to make characters interesting and engaging, they have to have a position that gets challenged, and whether they change completely, somewhat, or not at all, that's part of the engagement. But then you also have to create behavior based on their positions. So that helps characters not be boring, is what are their positions? They should have a main position, like a belief that they stand by, the truth that is revealed as the lie. Okay, and then they could have smaller positions, and positions can be created all throughout. But whatever positions you create, make sure that some of them are challenged. Not all. Like if somebody's like, I like apples over oranges, narratively, if that's not important, you don't have to challenge that. But if they do like apples over oranges, what does that do for their behavior? If they go into a place and there are apples and oranges, they choose the apples, right? If they choose the orange, then that is a misleading position. But the challenge and behavior is important. When it comes to plot, what makes plot engaging? Well, plot is the twists and turns, not a twist like, ooh, what the twist? He was a ghost the whole time. Twists and turns just means that you build up enough context and then you challenge that context. You give it a little something, you reframe it, things like that. That's what creates a little interest. But the stakes have to be raised. They have to be put into positions where they could or could not. You never want it to feel like they're going to succeed. You want them to feel like they could succeed but they may not succeed, right? Even in I would argue this, and anyone who writes romance, you could tell me otherwise too. I think in romance that's also will they, won't they, right? Will this relationship work? The reason we keep reading to the end is because isn't there a beat in romance where it's like their relationships in question, right? Because something happened, like they have to get back together, right? So it's the same thing with plot. Plot, you always want to present and set it up, and then you sort of want to reframe it. You want to put it in positions where will they, won't they? They could. You want to make sure that it is clear that they have the potential to, but not that it's guaranteed. When it comes to world building, what makes world building interesting is when you don't overload the world, but when the world feels lived in. What does that mean? Well, let's say there are let's say it's a thieves guild. You don't have to explain the thieves guild, but let's say there's an order to the thieves guild. So there's like a leader, there's an underboss, right? Let's say it's mafia. You wouldn't necessarily explain, all right, we got the Godfather, we got the underboss, we got the Caligari, right? You don't do that. You just allow the person who's in charge to be in charge. You allow the person who is somebody that everyone goes to talk to, or is the person that's sort of like is the in-between, to be the in-between. That's what lived in world building is. It's when we are seeing things play out. Same thing with magic. You can explain magic, but you don't have to explain magic, right? So even if it's a hard magic system, all right, where we as the readers understand the nuance of how magic works, it is through behavior that you could explore that. You do not have to say, oh, well, they have to eat and sleep and rest after they use magic. Magic utilizes their bodies. Like, show that happening. If somebody uses magic, fireball, right? When they're done, show that they're slightly tired if they're overusing their magic. Show that they have to sleep. Show that they have to eat. Show that they have to do whatever. You don't have to over-explain things. That's the difference between world building that is lived in versus world building that is told. All right, other than that, let's end the poll. 46, it was boring. All right, let's get it in. Oh, we got some comments. What we got here? Hey, Emma sends them into an apple frenzy. Give me all the apples. All right. Also, Emma told me to tell everybody not to watch my reel today. I don't know why. I thought it was funny. But I am crazy. All right. Yeah, Rose says, yeah, definitely don't want to be confusing or have boring characters and plot. Yeah, I mean, it's very important. Very important. All right. Yes, you definitely need the reader to wonder if the romance will succeed. Yeah, if you know the romance will succeed, then there's no engagement. We're not being pulled through the plot. You want to see the, do they, won't they, could they? Don't do that. Don't do what? Don't do what? What did I do? I loved it. SP, I'm so glad you loved it. I'm so happy. Let me see that thong. All right. Had my back stretcher. Oh, yeah. This is my favorite thing in the world, almost. I think we all did. Thong, 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 thong. Did you pop on it? Did I fit? No. All right, let's get to it. We did it. Laura. See, Laura appreciated it. Thank you, Laura. I thought it was fun. And just for the record, I normally wear a little bit more. I was in all gray today, as you can see. But this is a blue. It just doesn't look blue. It looks gray. I don't know. I had fun. Tomorrow's gonna tomorrow I was thinking of going a little bit more sexy, but it was vetoed, so I behaved well today, only said one joke. Ro, you were amazing today. Don't worry about it. I was very proud of you. There's still time, Ro. There's always time to tell more jokes. The power of the gray shorts. Yeah, gray shorts. Yes, they were gray shorts. I was wearing the shorts of gray. The gray shorts. All right. Is there anything else? What do we have? We have I think that's it. I think that's it. We did good today. Oh, we didn't get a. I'm gonna do some gonging. Oh, that felt good. I needed a gong. Where's Richard? Richard hasn't showed up. I haven't been able to use the gong yet today. Whatever. All right. Oh, I have a question. I have a question for everybody out there. Please feel free to answer this question. You will not be judged on the answer. And I'm not looking for a right answer. I'm just looking for an answer. Uh, so you know how I normally do the lives on Saturday and Sunday, and then I do a pre-record on Wednesday and traditionally Friday. But I've been throwing in like a random video lately, you know, because people are sending me, "Hey, could you do a video on this?" Would you feel more inclined to enjoy the videos if I just did Wednesday videos and then I just did my Saturday, Sunday lives, and then I had random videos that I put out occasionally. Uh, though I'll still do the interviews. The interviews will come out every other Friday, but basically, I want to cut down on how many videos I put because right now it's 5 videos. That's a lot. That's a lot of videos that I have to put out each week. But I don't mind doing because it's all pre-recorded. So when I do the extra videos, it's just like, you know, I'm just doing one video. But I don't know. You let me know. I look for Rich in the chat every time you do that. That's funny. Yeah, so that's my question. Is would it be more comfortable to just have the one video and then I'll do the interview every other week and then I just continue to do the live? However, I was also thinking of putting the extra video stuff that I have. I was thinking of putting that in the Patreon and also the membership for the YouTube. So if you're part of the Scribe, you'll get it anyway. But you know, I don't know. It's a lot of 5 videos. A lot of work. It's a lot of work. I don't think I'm getting that much extra viewage from putting out more videos. I think it would just make. I don't know. That's my question. I'm rambling now. The floor is yours. All right. Other than that, one and randoms, because they are a surprise when they pop up. It's like boom, boom, boom. Yeah, I like the randoms are because if somebody's like, "Hey, can you do a video on this?" and I'm like, "Here it is," but yeah, excellent. I've done a video on betas. Betas, get it? Have I done? Yeah, I've done videos on beta. Absolutely, yeah, I've definitely done videos on beta. Let me look. YouTube. Oh, there goes my stomach. All right, let's see. View my channel. Beta. Yeah, I got 1, 2. I got beta readers, alpha readers. Yeah. I got live videos. All you got to do is go to the channel and then go to the search and just put beta, and it'll pop up a whole bunch of videos. But I would say to you, Afghani, if you watch any of those beta videos and you feel like you want more information or you want me to go deeper into something, just let me know. You know, I'll pop a video. I'll do a video for you. You know that. But I thought I had beta videos. Beta videos. I need to start being a good student and tune in outside of live streams. Ro, you already give me so much of your time. Trust me. No judgment. It doesn't bother me. I've been watching them all, so do what you're comfortable with. Are we in a case of less is more? That's what I'm saying. Like, is less more? Would that, you know? Because I don't want to overwhelm people and just be like, look at all these videos. We'll see. I'm just trying to think of ideas. Fantastic. See, that's, you know, you and me. All right. Is that everything? Ooh, I like the procrastination video because I often beat myself up over you haven't written edited today. I forget. I wrote that week, etc. Oh yeah, I do like doing the procrastination videos, the how to stay productive and stuff like that. Those are on my rotations. Oh, what do we got here? Striving to not make a joke about fish. Poor kid. All right. Other than that, we did good today. I'm glad I did this video. I had a lot of fun doing it. Did you enjoy? I know some of you said you enjoyed the video today, but did you enjoy that I did a script instead of a chapter today? I think the next video is a chapter again. I am doing an episode like this for the first episode of The Rookie. I'm gonna do the basically the prologue of The Rookie because it's really good, and then I'm gonna do like the first scene. So I am gonna do another script soon, but I am gonna do a couple. I think the next video is something. Let me look. Yeah, I can't find it right now, but something. Betas! I have some ideas, but you are already doing so much, but it may not be my places. Jack, listen, you watch, you support, you're here. So it's all about elevating, celebrating. So if you need me to do something, if there's video ideas that I haven't done so far, you just let me know. And remember, you could put them in the comments. You could send me an email because you can contact me straight through my website, makearightlefthear.com. So don't feel like you have a place. You have a place to say. I'm floundering here. I'm floundering here. Fish jokes. You are absolutely allowed to ask for stuff, my friend. All right. I like the format of screenplay. Yeah, the screenplay format is nice to look at. But just to be clear, to your question earlier, screenplays are just as hard as novels. So whether you choose to write a screenplay or a novel, you're still in the same boat. But some people think, oh, there's no action. I don't have to worry about like all the pretty prose. I don't have to worry about immersion. But in reality, you're worrying about other things. There are different things that you need to be worrying about. Dialogue has to do way more work in a screenplay than it does. But again, dialogue does way more work in a screenplay than say a novel, even though I feel the dialogue should do just as much work in a novel. But in a novel, the immersion does way more. The action does way more work than say the screenplay. So it's always nice to see the two comparisons. Jack made the fish joke. He scaled it up. Something's fishy. He got that joke in at the tail end. All right. Oceans of humor. All right. Thank you for saving me on the joke, Jack. That's so funny. All right. Okay. And here we go. I just want to say, I think I'm hungry, but I don't know if I'm hungry enough to eat yet. That's what the poll should have been today. Should I eat or not eat? To eat or not to eat? That is the question. Whether it is nobler in the mind. Okay. I think I like it saying the person's name. Oh, I see what you're saying. Boop, 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 boop. Well, that's the he said, she said. Red said. But in a book, if Andy's like, I understand you're a man who knows how to get things, right? So, and Andy approached or whatever. Haywood drops the ball and grimaces. Or, oh wait, it's not on the screen. Yeah, but that's the Andy said or Red said. It's like putting it in to clarify. But then you don't need the dialogue tags though at a certain point when you're writing a novel because it should be inferred based on the movement of speech. And if you're going to entwine a third, a fourth, or even a fifth person, I like that better than the said tag. Well, the thing there's no right or wrong on that. Like that's an opinion, right? So it's like, but the thing is, said should technically, when they say it should be invisible, the reason it's invisible is because you shouldn't need it to clarify who's speaking every single line. You need it to calibrate, and technically, said should only. If you have two people talking, technically said should only be used once or occasionally for beat and rhythm, but not for the ending. You don't need, I think we're going to make it, Billy said. I'm I just want to get home, Alex said, you know. And then it's like, then Billy goes again. He's like, "Well, are we gonna eat first?" Billy said, "Like you don't need that, but you could be, you know, Billy tossed his bag on the table, uh, sliding over to Alex, you know, and then you could have the dialogue directly in that rhythm, that beat, because it's setting up Billy, and he goes, "Are we still going tomorrow?" And I don't know. You know, you could even have Alex took the bag off the table. You know, you can create movement without having to use the SEDs or, you know, Billy said around. If you eat now at 4, what time do you eat dinner? Depends. It depends. Sometimes I eat late, which is bad, which is real bad. I find myself looking forward to not needing to use said. Well, you need said, but you don't need said. Does that make sense? Like, you could technically just have physical, you know, Thomas sat in the chair. Thomas sat in the chair and threw his legs up on the table. I think dial. You know, that's technically the you're saying said, but you're not. You know, great. They've gotten started on the Anyway, all right, everyone. I think that's good. If there are any questions, we could do. I could let me give the floor to everyone. If you have questions, if you have questions, let me know now, because I'm ready to go, but I'm willing. You know, I try to give this extra. Oh, wait, what we got here? Now I don't need to say it 100 billion times to establish who's talking. You mean in a screenplay? That is not necessarily true, Ro. And the reason I say that is because in a screenplay, just because you're going to have actors act doesn't mean you know what I'm saying? Like, just because it says Andy and then it says Red doesn't mean the dialogue associated with them is strong enough to maintain the continuity with Andy. But also with a screenplay, when they're acting, you might be saying, "Oh, it's going to be there," you know. But in reality, you know what I'm saying? The voice still has to maintain some continuity in the dialogue when you're doing screenplays. You can't just be like, "Well, it says Andy in red, everything's copacetic," but like in reality, you're supposed to take the names away when you're practicing, when you're reading it, and you just have people read it and you go, "Who's talking?" If you can't tell who's talking, that means the dialogue's not doing its work in the screenplay. But in a book, it should also feel that way. But in reality, you want clarity from movement, you know? I've got comments, sorry. No problem. Nap time for me. Hey, SB, real quick before you run off. Could we do tomorrow? Just asking, because I know could we do tomorrow? If you can't, no problem. I'll do tonight. But could you do tomorrow? Could you do tomorrow? I have a question. Oh, by the way, instead of tonight, I have a question. Do you make your thumb? Yes, I make my thumbnails myself. If they look like cartoons, I just use AI for that. But other than that, I use Photoshop, and I created a template. You can actually see the older thumbnail designs are the oldest one I have is on the first video I ever made, which is the 27 chapter outline template. And then oh, all right, yeah, because actually it would help me to do tomorrow. I have been looking forward to talking to you all week. I will wait one more day. Blessings to you. Thank you so much. That helps me in many great ways. And I got some really great cleanup going on. You're gonna love it. We're gonna lots of stuff. And it's good stuff. Good stuff. So yeah, tomorrow. Because I discovered that you can ask chat to create. Oh yeah, you can. When I do like the rewrite the greats, where I have like a cartoon of me like back to back with the character from the book, that's when I use the AI. But as far as the regular thumbnails go, I do that all myself. So I basically I basically delete the backgrounds to my pictures of me, and then I put me on the thumbnail as a layer, and then I have the line. So all the elements of the thumbnail are made in Photoshop. The only time I don't use that is when you look at but I'm kind of trying to get away from that. The only ones I want to use the AI for is the rewrite the greats videos, because I like the idea of them being back to back. I'll try to explain in an email or something. Yeah, absolutely, man. You could always email me. You could always email me, bro. You could always email me, bro. Bro. Do they say bro anymore? Is that outdated? They'd be like, bro. I don't know. All right, I think we're done. I think we did it. Yeah. You know why? Because maybe I could use a sandwich. But I could definitely use a sandwich. You want a sandwich? All right. All right, to everyone out there. Hey, listen, I had a lot of fun. I know I say it all the time, but it's true. It's true. I'm going to try to do more screenplays. I will try to get them up and do the reverse engineering and show you how to look at your writing, but using the screenplay as an opportunity. Honestly, I could do this all day. I love breaking down stuff like that. But with that said, I'm out. I will see you tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As always, I'm Thomas J. Bellezza. As always, keep developing the right mindset. I'll see you next time. Bye.